Hello students, in today's video we will revise the remaining portion of chapter number 1, that is electric charges and fields. Our first topic is electric dipole. An electric dipole consists of two separated point charges. They have the same magnitude but opposite signs. In this picture we can clearly see that a positive charge is there and a negative charge is there. Both are equal in magnitude but opposite in nature, and they are separated by some small distance L. So this system will be called as what? An electric dipole. Now to measure the strength of an electric dipole, we have dipole moment, which is represented by small p. It is a vector quantity. It has a direction. Its direction is from minus q to plus q, from negative charge to positive charge. And its magnitude is given by the product of the magnitude of either of the charges and the distance between them. So that's why we write P is equals to Q into L. And P here denotes dipole moment. It is not momentum and it is a vector quantity, and according to this expression we can write its SI unit. So the SI unit of dipole moment is coulomb meter. Coulomb for charge, meter for the distance. Now suppose if we want to calculate electric field due to an electric dipole at an axial position. Here in this picture we can clearly see that AB is an electric dipole. It consists of two charges minus Q and plus Q. They are separated by 2L distance. Point P is an axial point as it lies on the dipole axis, and at this point P we want to calculate what the net electric field due to this electric dipole AB. Let us suppose that EA is the electric field due to minus Q charge at point P. So since EA is due to negative charge, its direction will be in this direction, towards the negative charge. And let us suppose that EB is the electric field at point P due to positive charge, due to plus Q charge. So since this electric field is produced due to positive charge, so its direction will be away from this charge. So at point P we have two electric field, one in this direction, the other one in this direction. And we can also say that EB is greater than EA. Why? Because plus Q is more closer to P as compared to minus Q. So as the distance is less between them, electric field will be more, that is EB. As distance is more between them, minus Q and point P, EA will be less. So what will be the net electric field at point P? It will be EP is equals to EB minus EA. We will not solve the complete derivation as I've already explained this derivation in my previous videos and all. So you can go through those videos. So directly after solving all the expressions, we have one final expression that it will be EP is equals to 2P upon 4 pi epsilon naught x cube. So EP denotes the net electric field at point P due to this electric dipole at an axial position. Here P is the dipole moment, and x cube, what is x over here? X is the distance of point P from O. O is the center of an electric dipole. So this is an expression for an electric field due to an electric dipole at an axial position. Now suppose we want to calculate electric field at an equatorial position. In this picture, AB is an electric dipole consisting of two charges minus Q and plus Q separated by 2L distance. P is the dipole moment whose direction is from minus Q to plus Q. Q is an equatorial point as it lies on the perpendicular bisector of this electric dipole. Now at point Q, EB is the electric field produced due to plus Q charge, so its direction will be away from the charge. EA is the electric field produced at point Q due to this negative charge, so its direction will be towards this charge. It means two electric fields are acting at point Q, one in this direction, the other one is in this direction. Electric field is vector, so we need to resolve them. How we can resolve them? But before that we should discuss one more thing, that we know this thing AQ and BQ, they are equal. So basically AQB is an isosceles triangle, and if this is theta, this will also be theta. And if we draw a line parallel to AB, so if this is theta, this will also be theta, alternate interior angles, and if this is theta, this will also be theta, corresponding angles. Now in this picture simply we will resolve EB and EA. First we will resolve EB into two rectangular components. It will be EB cos theta and it will be EB sin theta. Similarly, EA can also be resolved into two rectangular components. So this will be EA cos theta and this will be EA sin theta. Now we can clearly see that EB sin theta and EA sin theta, they are equal and opposite, so they cancel out each other. It means what? Net electric field at point Q will be only due to these two components, EB cos theta and EA cos theta. So the net electric field will be equals to EA cos theta plus EB cos theta. Again, the derivation I have done in my previous video, so you can go through that video. So finally we will have this expression, EQ is equals to P upon 4 pi epsilon naught y cube, where y is the distance of this point Q from the center of an electric dipole. So this is the expression for an electric field at an equatorial position due to an electric dipole. So we observe that the electric field at an axial position is twice of the electric field at an equatorial position. Next topic is dipole in an electric field. If an electric dipole is placed in a uniform electric field, what will happen? That we need to discuss. Again, this electric dipole is having two charges, minus q and plus q, separated by d distance, and p is the dipole moment whose direction is from minus q to plus q, and it is inclined at an angle theta with the electric field. Now we know this thing, this positive charge plus q will experience some force due to this electric field in this direction. And how much force will be acting on this charge because of electric field? It will be q into E. And similarly, minus q charge will also experience some force due to the electric field, but this time the direction will be opposite. It will be in this direction, but the magnitude will be same. The magnitude will be QE only. So as two equal and opposite forces are acting on these two charges, the net force will be zero. The net translating force will be zero. But at the same time, one more thing we know, that when two equal and opposite forces are acting on a body at two different points, a torque is acting on that particular body. This electric dipole will experience some torque, and this torque will try to align this electric dipole in the direction of the electric field. And this torque is given by tau is equals to P cross E, where tau is torque, P is electric dipole moment, and E is electric field. So the cross product of these two will gives us what? The torque acting on this electric dipole. And as it is the cross product of these two, so what will be the direction of torque? The direction of torque will be perpendicular to the plane containing dipole moment and electric field. Okay, and how we have derived this? This I have already explained in my previous video, so you can go through that video. Now, if we want to rotate this electric dipole in a direction opposite to the torque, against the torque, if we want to rotate this electric dipole, we have to do some work for that. And this work done will stored in the form of potential energy in this electric dipole, which is represented by U. And it is given by U is equals to P dot E. It will be the dot product of dipole moment and electric field. So it is a dot product, and we already know that potential energy is a scalar quantity. So please remember that the cross product of dipole moment and electric field will gives us what? Torque. But the dot product of these two will gives us what? Potential energy. Next topic is electric flux. Electric flux is the number of electric field lines passing to an area. As in this picture, you can see that this particular area is there, and these are the electric field lines which are passing normally to it. So this is represented by one term, we call it what? Electric flux. And electric flux is a scalar quantity, as it simply gives us the number of electric field lines, and it is represented by phi, and phi is EA cos theta. It is the dot product of E and A, where E is the electric field and A is the area vector. Okay, now here simply it is written EA. So why it is written EA? Because in this picture we can clearly see that area vector and electric field both are in same direction. It means the value of theta is 0, because theta is the angle between area vector and electric field. In this picture both are in same direction. Theta will be equals to 0, and cos 0 will gives us what? 1. So that's why it is written over here phi is equals to EA. But basically, what is electric flux? It is the dot product of electric field and area vector. Next topic is Gauss law. Actually, Gauss law gives us the relationship between flux and the charge inside any closed surface. Suppose a closed surface is there, and inside this surface a charge is there. So how much electric flux will be there? That is given by Gauss law, which states that the net electric flux through any closed surface will be 1 upon epsilon naught times the charge enclosed inside that surface. So that's why according to the statement this expression is written, phi is equals to q upon epsilon naught. And we know this thing, what is phi? Phi is dot product of electric field and area vector. And since we have to integrate it completely, so we have to use a closed integral, and that's why closed integral symbol is there. So this is the expression for Gauss law. And here you can clearly see that the charge is enclosed by this closed surface. So we have taken a very small area element. This is the area vector for this area element, and this is electric field on this area element, and theta is the angle between them. So a small part, we will start with a small part, and then through integration we can cover the complete surface. So this is what Gauss law, and the integral is over a closed surface because we want to calculate the net flux through this closed surface. So that's why we need to integrate it. So please remember, it's a statement that flux is 1 upon epsilon naught times the total charge enclosed within that surface. Okay, now how to derive Coulomb's law with the help of Gauss law. Okay, here what we have considered a positive charge Q and a Gaussian surface that is spherical in shape. What is Gaussian surface? Gaussian surface is any hypothetical surface which is closed. Whenever we use Gauss theorem, we need to choose any Gaussian surface. So here we are talking about this positive charge Q. So we have chosen one Gaussian surface which is spherical in shape and whose radius is how much? R. Now on this Gaussian surface, we have considered a very small area element. This is what area vector, whose direction will be in this direction. This is the electric field through this area element. So we observe that electric field and area vector both are in same direction. So theta is 0 over here. So now if we want to calculate the flux through this, how we will write EDA cos theta? D phi will be equals to EDA cos theta. And if we want to calculate the total electric flux through this closed surface, so we will integrate it. So that's why what we have written over here, phi is equals to integration EDA cos theta, or E dot dA. Now we know this thing, E is radially outward and the value of E will be same at each and every point on this Gaussian surface, as R is not changing. The distance of each and every point on this Gaussian surface is at R distance. So the value of E will be same. Okay. So that's why E could be taken out of integration. Okay. And it will be EDA cos theta. Cos theta will be 1, which I've already explained it to you. And E is constant. So E will be out of integration. So that's why we are here. E close integral dA. According to Gauss law, flux is equals to Q upon epsilon naught. So that this step we have written according to Gauss law. Now the thing is that integration of dA means we will talk about the surface area of this sphere. And if R is the radius, what will be the surface area? It will be 4 pi r square. So in place of this, we have written 4 pi r square is equals to Q upon epsilon naught. And Q in is written, it indicates that how much charge is enclosed within this surface. How much charge is inside the surface. That's why IN is written. Now if we shift this 4 pi r square that side, it will go in denominator. So finally what we will have, E is equals to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q upon r square. And this 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught can be replaced by K. So finally we are here. So E is equals to K Q in upon r square. And if suppose any test charge Q naught is placed over here, Q0 is placed over here. So how much force will act between them? It will be 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q0 upon r square. And what's that? It is Coulomb's law. So this is how we have derived Coulomb's law with the help of Gauss law. Okay, now we need to discuss about the application of Gauss law. This is the first application, that how to find electric field for an infinite long wire which is positively charged. So I have told you this thing, that whenever we talk about Gauss law, we have to consider one Gaussian surface. For this we have considered what? A cylinder. Okay, now we can see over here that this cylinder is having 3 parts. Now this cylinder is having 3 parts. This is first part, this is second part, this is third part. Now what we will discuss, we will talk about the direction of the electric field and area vector in these 3 parts. If I talk about this part, the direction of electric field is in this direction. The direction of area vector will be in this direction. It means both are perpendicular to each other. It means theta is equals to 90 degree over here. Cos 90 will gives you 0. So flux will be 0 over here. If I talk about this part, in this part also the direction of electric field will be in this direction. the direction of area vector will be in this direction. So again theta is 90 degree over here, cos 90 is 0, and if cos 90 is 0, flux will be 0. It means flux for this particular region, flux for this particular region, it will be 0. So for both these parts, flux will be 0. Now we will talk about this curved surface area of the cylinder, this region. So for this particular curved surface area, we will observe the direction of electric field will be in this direction. The direction of area vector will also be in this direction. It means theta is 0 over here. So if theta is 0 over here, cos 0 will gives us what? 1. It means we can say that the flux for this particular long wire which is charged will be only through the curved surface area of this Gaussian surface. So that's why we have written over here that flux is equals to closed integral EdA. E will be constant at each and every point. So the integration will be on dA, and dA, which is the small area element on this curved surface, if you will integrate it, it will gives you what? The curved surface area of this cylinder, and the curved surface area of the cylinder will be what? 2 pi RH, because radius of the cylinder is r and h is the height, as you can see over here. So that's why it is written E into 2 pi RH. Okay, now we will apply Gauss law. According to Gauss law, phi is equals to q upon epsilon naught. So in place of phi, what we will write? E into 2 pi RH. So E into 2 pi RH is equals to q upon epsilon naught. And in place of q, we have written what? We have written q in terms of linear charge density. So it will become what? Lambda into h. So, and here we want to calculate electric field. So what we will do? We will shift this term onto that side. So it will be E is equals to lambda upon 2 pi epsilon naught r. So this is the electric field for an infinite long wire. Next application is electric field near an infinite conducting sheet of charge. So here we are talking about sheet of charge. So we will talk about surface charge density sigma. Now the sheet is infinite conducting. It is not thin sheet. It is infinite conducting. So all the charge will come on the surface. So inside no charge will be there. And if inside no charge will be there, flux will be 0. Now whenever we talk about Gauss law, I have told you we have to consider one Gaussian surface. So here we have consider cylinder as the Gaussian surface. So here also we can divide this Gaussian surface into 3 parts. This right cap, this left cap, and this curved surface area. Okay, now if we talk about this curved surface area, the direction of the area vector will be in this direction, and the direction of the electric field is in this direction. It means theta is equals to 90 degree. Cos 90 is 0. It means flux through this area will be 0. No flux will be there through this curved surface area. Now we will talk about this left cap. Now in this left cap, no charge is there, and if no charge is there, no flux will be there. It means for left cap, flux will be 0. Now if we talk about this right cap, now for this right cap, area vector will be in this direction. Electric field is also in this direction. It means theta is equals to 0. Cos 0 will gives you what? 1. So the flux for left cap will be given by EA. And according to Gauss law, we can write it in this way, that flux is equals to q upon epsilon naught. We just want to write the expression for E. So we have to shift this A that side. So it will be q upon epsilon naught into A. Now this q could be replaced by sigma into A. So finally what we have written? E is equals to sigma A upon epsilon naught, and this A and this A will get cancelled. So finally what we will have? E is equals to sigma upon epsilon naught. Now field is twice that for a non-conducting sheet with the same density. Suppose if this sheet is non-conducting, so if this sheet is non-conducting or insulating, the charge will not, all the charge will not come on the surface, the charge will be everywhere. And if the charge will be everywhere, electric field will not be 0, there will be flux. So if there will be flux, if there will be electric field, so this electric field will become what? Twice. So for that particular case, E will be equals to sigma upon 2 epsilon naught. So I hope this thing is clear, that what is the formula for non-conducting sheet with same density. Electric field for this particular case, E was 0 because no charge was there. But if the sheet is non-conducting, there will be charge, there will be electric field, and for that particular case, E will be sigma upon 2 epsilon naught. Now suppose if two infinite parallel sheets of charge are there and they are thin. So two parallel sheets are there, A and B, both are positively charged. Surface charge density for this sheet is sigma A, surface charge density for this sheet is sigma B. And let us suppose one more thing as well, that let E1 be the electric field due to this sheet, E2 is the electric field due to this B sheet. Okay, now we will talk about three regions. This will be first region, this will be second region, and this will be third region. That what is the net electric field in this region, then in second region, and then in third region due to these two parallel sheets of charge. Let's talk about region first. In region first, the direction of E1 and E2 both are in same direction, that is towards left, because both are produced due to positively charged plane sheet. So that's why we have written E is equals to minus E1 minus E2, because as they are in left direction, they are towards left, that's why we have to use what, negative sign. Now in place of E1, what we will write, sigma A upon 2 epsilon naught, because sigma A is the surface charge density for this sheet. And for E2 we will write sigma B upon 2 epsilon naught, because sigma B is the surface charge density for this sheet B. Now negative sign and 2 epsilon naught we can take common, so that's why we have this expression for net electric field in region number 1. Now in region 2, electric field E1 will be in this direction and electric field E2 will be in this direction. Both will be opposite. So the net electric field will be E1 minus E2, and E1 will be positive because it is towards right, E2 will be negative because it is towards left. And in place of E1 and E2 we know this thing, we can write sigma A upon 2 epsilon naught and sigma B upon 2 epsilon naught. Now suppose if the surface charge density for these two sheets is equal. So in that case, electric field, the net electric field between these two sheets will be 0, because if sigma A and sigma B are equal, so if you will subtract them, it will gives you what, 0. Now in region 3, in this region, the direction of E1 and direction of E2 both will be in right hand direction. So both will be positive. So the net electric field will be E1 plus E2. Again in place of E1 we have written sigma A upon 2 epsilon naught, and in place of E2 we have written sigma B upon 2 epsilon naught. Next application is electric field intensity due to a uniformly charged spherical shell. Suppose a conducting sphere is there, if a charge is given to this sphere, all the charge will come on the surface of this sphere and its radius is capital R. Now suppose at any point P which is outside this spherical shell, we want to calculate what electric field due to this charged spherical shell. So what we have to consider, a Gaussian surface which is passing through this point P, and let us suppose its radius is a small r. And we have to do it with the help of Gauss law. So here we have considered one small area element, and the area vector is ds, and electric field is E. Both are in same direction, so theta will be 0. So from Gauss law, what we have written, phi is equals to close integral E dot ds is equals to q upon epsilon naught. Now we know this thing, E and ds are in the same direction, so theta will be 0, so cos 0 will be 1. So directly what we can write, phi is equals to close integral E ds q upon epsilon naught. Now E will be constant, so that's why E is taken out of integration. So here we are on this particular step. I think this is clear. Now the complete integral of ds will gives us what, the surface area of this sphere, of this Gaussian surface, and it will be how much, 4 pi r square. And we want to calculate E, so 4 pi r square we have to shift onto this side. So finally what we will have, E is equals to q upon 4 pi epsilon naught r square. And in this in place of q, we can write this q in terms of surface charge density. So q will be equals to sigma into 4 pi r square. So in place of q, if you will write this, then finally we will have this expression, E is equals to sigma r square upon epsilon naught r square. We can say that electric field due to a uniformly charged thin spherical shell at a point outside the shell is such as if the whole charge were concentrated at the center of the shell. Because what expression we are getting over here, E is equals to q upon 4 pi epsilon naught r square, which we have already done for electric field due to a point charge at any point. So that's why it is said that the electric field due to this charged spherical shell is such that the whole charge is concentrated at its center, that is O. Now suppose if we want to calculate electric field at any point A which is lying on the surface of the shell. Before that we have calculated at any point outside the shell. Now the point A is on the shell. So in this case, what we will simply do, simply that we have already calculated the expression that E is equals to Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught R square, because that time the distance of the point from the center of the sphere was smaller. In this case, what is the distance of this point A from the center of the sphere? It is capital R. So simply small r will be replaced by capital R. So that's why we have written over here E is equals to Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught R square. And again, if we will write Q in terms of surface charge density, so finally we will have this expression E is equals to sigma upon epsilon naught. So this is electric field due to uniformly charged thin spherical shell at a point on the surface of the shell is maximum. Okay, now if I'll ask you that what will be the electric field inside this spherical shell? So inside the spherical shell, phi will be 0. Why electric flux will be 0? Because inside this spherical shell, no charge is there. All the charges are on the surface. Inside the shell, charge is 0, and if charge is 0, flux will be 0. And flux is 0, so E will be 0. So inside the sphere, E will be 0, and it will be maximum on the surface of this charged spherical shell. So this was all about conducting charged sphere. And suppose if the sphere is non-conducting, if the sphere is insulating, so all these things I have discussed in my previous videos. You can go through those videos. And that's it. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself.